Okay. I want to see what the hell's going on over here with Brett Cooper. I have not checked into her channel in a really long time, and I know that once upon a time she was working for the Daily Wire, and as of right now, she is no longer working for the Daily Wire. So one would think that maybe, just maybe, things have improved in that particular regard. Maybe she is in a position where she's not going to be as much of a bigot or as much of, well, what the Daily Wire literally set her up to be. At least that would be my hope. But I guess we'll figure out exactly what's going on with that. But first, let's get into the fan art section real quickly. And we're going to lump a few of these together because I think they all need to be part of a larger conversation. So, Tazor said, Suzus neutral special is a gun, apparently, because according to Stoff, we now have a bunch of other Suris clones. We have Ruris, a purple Suris with an axe. We have Suris, who y'all have already seen, the flat-chested, naginata-wielding version of my character with incredibly sharp teeth. And then we have Suzus, who I guess uses a scythe and also a gun, according to Tazor. And, you know, I've made the mistake of making all fan art canon, and here we are. So, meh. Well, I guess all that's left to do is to talk about Fem Shapiro now. That's where we're at. Thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. That said, let's go ahead and pop up the little video, pop away from there, go back over to Donkey Kong, and let's listen to what Brett Cooper has to say.
Today, we've talked about some really terrible takes, but I wanted to end the show with what I think is the absolute worst one. And this is a long clip. And you might be going, Brett, why are you showing us this entire thing? It's because it gets better, because it gets more and more unhinged as it goes. Just take a watch.
Okay.
I've had
Well, that's weird. Thanks, YouTube.
it with white people that triple trumped, that have the nerve and the audacity to walk into a Mexican restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, an Indian restaurant, go to perhaps their gay hairdresser. I don't think you should be able to enjoy anything but Cracker Barrel. And if you want to triple Trump and you want to browbeat DEI and you want to browbeat gay people and you want to browbeat black people as you've been doing for 400 years, and you want to browbeat this generation of immigrants that come over here and open up businesses earnestly, pay their taxes, you want to demonize them and call them rapists and felons and all this shit when the felon is the teeny weeny mushroom cock piece of shit, Kankles McTaco tits at the top of the ticket. I have fucking had it from top to bottom. White people that triple Trump should be banned.
What? Why am I not allowed to pause? YouTube, thank you. Jesus, I'm going to refresh that page.
Let's end the show with...
Because I should not live in a world where I'm not allowed to actually hit the pause button. That should be my right as an American. Anyway, so the basis of what she's saying is you should not be able... And there's no way to enforce this hypothetical, and I feel like it's disingenuous to try to act as if that's what's being mentioned. But you should not be able... as a person who has been constantly saying that immigrants are bad, you should not then hypocritically benefit from the labors of those immigrants. On a deep, visceral level, I do understand it. I get where she's coming from. Is triple Trump voting for Trump 3 times? Yes, triple Trumping is voting for Trump 3 times. It's voting for Trump in 2016, it's voting for Trump in 2020, and then once again in 2024. So I kind of understand where she's coming from. Because this is an argument that atheists were using for young Earth creationists a long time ago, if you remember. So how did the argument go? Well, a young Earth creationist would do something that very obviously showed a disdain for science. They would show a disdain for science, or hell, even more recently, you would find people in the conservative lines of work who would say, hey, we don't think that the medical industry and medical professionals are right when it comes to COVID. And you'd go, okay, then please do us a favor and be consistent and do not spend any amount of time benefiting from the labors of the medical field if all you're going to do is argue that the medical field is bad, that it's made up of bad actors and all that other stuff. So I understand where she's coming from. I don't see it as necessarily the biggest problem in the world. On the one hand, yes, you should be allowed to go into a place of business, and if you purchase something from that business, you should be able to benefit from it. On the other hand, it feels really weird to be a person that has such huge disdain for the people who make that business run, and then also, for some reason, benefit from the labors of that business. Those two things do feel like they are not congruent with one another. They feel like they are discongruent with one another. But let's see where Brett goes with this.
To a Mexican restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, an Indian restaurant, go to perhaps their gay hairdresser. I don't think you should just earnestly pay their taxes. You want to demonize them and call them rapists and felons and all this shit when the felon is the teeny weeny mushroom cock piece of shit, Kankles McTaco tits at the top of the ticket. I have fucking had it from top to bottom. White people that triple Trump should be banned, boycotted from enjoying the best thing that America has to offer, which is multiculturalism. Get your...
Okay, so before Brett gets to it, and I know I'm going to have problems with how Brett tackles this, but I think this is an unenforceable thing. I feel like there being pressures in society that punish you for how you vote goes completely against the idea of being in a democracy. You should be allowed to vote for who you want to vote for. I am not happy with the end results of those votes. Absolutely not. No, I don't want to live in fucking Trump land. I don't. But I also understand where the sentiment's coming from. It makes perfect sense to me. I don't think it's enforceable. I don't think it's a healthy mindset, but I understand where she's coming from. And I think it's really hard not, like, you have to deliberately not understand where she's coming from at the very least, if you are going to say that, like, oh no, you're just wrong on the flat of it. No, you're correct in how you feel. You're correct in what should happen. People who hate Mexicans should not benefit from places selling Mexican food. People who hate the Chinese and constantly demonize them because of COVID should not benefit from establishments ran by Chinese immigrants. I understand that sentiment and I wholeheartedly agree, but I do not see a world where we would be able to enforce that in any meaningful way without no longer being a democracy.
Your fat asses out of the Mexican restaurant, get your fat asses over to Cracker Barrel, because nobody wants to see your fucking smug ass, teeny weeny, pink arm, big gut around. Nobody wants to see that shit. No one.
I mean,
okay.
it just keeps getting better. I realized as we got into that I should have put a language disclaimer at the top, like we talked about last week, because people watch with their kids. So I'm so sorry if you're...
I'm sorry, if you're watching Brett Cooper with your kids, maybe you need to not be a parent anymore. I'm sorry, there are certain shows you should not be watching as a kid. You shouldn't be watching my show as a kid. There's too many suggestive themes, least of which would be the cartoon rack. I do not think that that's a thing that you should be doing, generally speaking. I think that life is healthier, life is better when you prevent children from watching political YouTubers. None of us have any fucking training, have any professional standards, have any standards of ethics. None of us have that shit.
Your kids had to listen to the first part of that before you caught on and realized what this woman was saying. Oh my God, that entire video, it is just so perfect. Like, there's so many things that you can rip into there. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that she calls us triple Trumpers, the people who like triple dipped with Trump, saying that we have been around for 400 years trying to set everybody back. Oh yeah, Trump supporters have definitely been around for 400 years.
Okay, so what she's doing now is being super disingenuous. Nobody is saying that Trump supporters have been around for that long. She is saying that people who would have supported Trump, so people who are racist, people who are unpleasant, people who should not be in a society with mixed races, and yet benefit from a society of mixed race people. That's what she's talking about. Those people have been around for years. People who benefit from living in a society where we have a bunch of different races, we have multiculturalism, people who actively benefit from that and then do everything in their power to stomp that out. I don't see a contradiction there. I see a contradiction with democracy when we talk about how to execute it. That's different. Happy the Wendigo, thank you for resubscribing, says, Trump support like people to be exist. Those were words. Those were in fact words. I don't know what to make of those words, but they were words.
We're all just zombies now, lady. But it's just the whole idea, the entire premise. Like, you want us to boycott all of these businesses and that will help them. How? Like, that's going to make their lives better? Like, we will stay fed. It's not asking you to boycott a business, though. Again, this is the reason why, in terms of enforceability, we run into problems. She's not saying boycott those businesses. She's saying do not benefit from those businesses. But you are correct, though. In essence, in effect, it would be the same thing as a boycott of those businesses. But I think her criticism, if we were to be fair, her criticism is one about being a person who shits on a culture while also benefiting from the fruits of that culture. And I can understand where she's coming from there. There we go. God, gun physics in this game. Something wild. On Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel has a great menu. Unfortunately, they've been modernized. I don't know if you guys have seen the new updated Cracker Barrel restaurants. They look horrifying. They look cold. They look like they're the inside of some kind of weird hospital, but they still have good.
What you talk all the Cracker Barrels where I live look the same as they did like 10 years ago. What are you talking about, Brett? Maybe show something on screen.
Food. We would be totally fine. We would be fed. We would be happy. We'd be getting the fun little candies. And the other businesses, the ones that you're telling us that we should not go to and spend our money at, they would suffer. They would lose customers because half of the country would not be supporting them because you assume that we dislike them. Also, it's incredibly offensive, in my opinion, that you're saying that the Mexican restaurants, the people who own the Chinese restaurants, that they are all illegal immigrants. Like, do you not know?
That's not what she's saying. What are you talking about? Never once did she say that at all. No, let me make it make more sense for you, because in Brett Cooper's world, where she critiques things with a tiny little brain, maybe that's why she has a trouble here. Maybe that's why she's having a bit of a trouble here. The problem is not that all people who work at these establishments are illegal immigrants. The problem is that the people who freak out the most about illegal immigrants typically freak out about all immigrants, legal or otherwise. They move the goalposts and pretend that that's never a thing that they do. And we've seen that with recent ICE raids, there's not a lot of discrimination with how they've been throwing just everything at the wall at all.
Oh, how it works. Like the people who started the Chinese restaurants, the people who run the Mexican restaurants around the corner from my house, they are here legally. They are trying to build a business. They are trying to.
What about the one who has the pro-Elon, pro-Trump business that me and Rhino talked about? Oh yeah, it was the pro-Trump business, the T-Rump burgers. And it turns out he was actually an illegal immigrant as well. Like, what about those guys who are illegal immigrants and did start businesses? Because not everybody who's a legal immigrant they're not always the ones starting the businesses.
Support their family. Obviously, we are going to support that. That is the American dream. We support small businesses. We want them to have customers. We want people to come here legally and be able to find success and support their family and be safe. That is not something that we are against. Yet in your little pea brain, where everything is about, being a bigot or being racist, everything has to be this ism. Whatever it may be, you can't distinguish between that. And also, using her own framework, because what she's basically saying is that because of the way that we voted, we must hate those marginalized groups. We must hate the gay hairdressers and the owners of the Chinese restaurant.
I mean, yeah, actually, that's what she's getting at. Because if you are going to support a president who spends his time making life more miserable for those people, what would you ascribe? what emotion would you ascribe to those people? So, like, okay, let's put this in terms of the big guy that we don't want to talk about, but we always have to talk about sometimes. The big man of fascism himself. Let's talk about Hitler for just a minute. Now, I'm not saying that Trump is Hitler yet. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, for the people who wanted him to be in power, do you think that every one of those people hated the Jewish people? I would argue they did not. I would argue that there is no way that every person who voted and wanted Hitler in power was they themselves a giant bigot against the Jewish people. However, what is irrefutable is that irrespective of the yes bigotry or the no bigotry, the end result is that you have a nation of people led by a bigot that engaged in a genocide. Irrespective of the reality of what's in the heart of hearts of all of those voters, you still live in a world where the material conditions of the people who lived in that country were such that they had to deal with a far more racist, far more, well, in his case, genocidal maniac. It did not matter what was in the heart of hearts of the people in the nation. But I would say that it's entirely fair to tell German people who engaged in those votes that if they wanted to pick up a bagel, maybe fucking don't. Maybe don't be the person who strips away the rights of your fellow human being and then tries to benefit from the fruits of their culture. And that's what she's basically saying here. Again, in terms of enforceability, it is unenforceable. There's no real way to guarantee that people would not benefit from those things. There's not. We don't have a way to do that, and I'm glad we don't have a way to do that, because if we did, we would be living in a far more dystopian society than we do right now. So I'm super happy we don't. The problem is not with the logic inherently, because the logic inherently is basically just saying don't benefit from the fruits of people who you're trying to step on. That's consistent. The problem ultimately is enforceability. The reason that her take is bad is not because it in and of itself is wrong. The reason why her take is bad is because we do not have a way, nor should we have a way, to enforce such a paradigm onto the people of the United States.
Trump's like, just because of the way that we voted. So using her framework that she just laid out, I'm going to assume, based on the way that she is, voting, that she probably hates straight white men, that she does not like conservatives, that she probably doesn't like Christians.
How, though? How does that work? Also, Jeff Key, thank you for subscribing. So there's a difference. Did Kamala Harris run her campaign on hating straight white men, getting them out of the country? No, not really. Did Joe Biden? Did Hillary Clinton? Did any of those people run a campaign on disenfranchisement of the white American populace? I would argue that not one of them did. But Trump did run a campaign on disenfranchisement of Mexicans. He did run a campaign on disenfranchisement of Muslims. He did run a campaign on hating your fellow Americans. He's also, in his current time in office, been running his because it's not a campaign right now, but he has been running his current administration in such a way that demonizes people who disagree with him. Just disagree with him. He said that he hates all Democrats, and he's been doing this shit for a while. So no, Brett, it's completely disingenuous to try to argue that these two things are equal. They're not. One is a campaign based on hatred with a smokescreen of American greatness, and the others have been campaigns based off of, well, let's be honest, promises that would not have been really kept in the first place. This is where I have to say that it doesn't matter for the Democrats. The Democrats don't really keep their promises as well as they should. Orla Sarah says, no kidding. In the UK, our last government was boasting about how they managed to drive away 90% of forest students in the UK, but when they pay 2 or 3 times more than we do, when they paid 2 or 3 times more than we do, what they did was drive up the cost of higher education again. 50% of RNHs used to be people who are here on visas. Now it's 30%. Okay, it's a wall of text of, yes, racism is bad, and we're seeing that shit happen over and over again. Agreed. Okay, Brett, back to you.
Christians, and so based on the argument that she just laid out, she shouldn't be able to support any of those businesses. She shouldn't be able to support businesses that are owned by Christians or conservatives. She should not be able to use or benefit from anything that a white, straight man has ever created. So, I'm sorry, lady.
Okay, sorry, Brett, you're being a fucking moron here because that does not naturally follow from her position.
But I guess you can't drive anywhere because we know who created the cars. Oh, also, but you can't walk anywhere because the Romans created the sidewalks. Those were white men. Oh,
that's okay. Now you're just being a disingenuous piece of shit. Okay, so Brett, again, I understand tiny brain moment may be hard to understand, may be hard to get, but listen to me. Listen to me. The conversation, the way you voted informs that you hate a certain class of people because your politician ran on hating a certain class of people, and you supported him. That is a consistent set of beliefs. Democrat, on the other hand, your politician ran on a bunch of empty promises, let's be honest. Lowering minimum wage, or increasing the minimum wage, or lowering student debts, things that, again, empty promises. But somebody who's voting on somebody who's giving those promises, where is the point where that person is hating the white guys? Where is the point where that person is hating fucking ancient Romans? Where is that point? The only way you get to that position is if you're being a disingenuous hack. Guys, it may be a surprise to some of you, but I believe that Brett Cooper is a disingenuous hack. I know it's weird. I know it's a strange thing for me to say, but I think it might actually be true. Weird.
Guess you can't do that. Guess you can't go to any business that is owned by somebody of faith because based on the way you voted, obviously I'm assuming that you just hate them. Like, do you hear how absurd and ridiculous
it's absurd when you say it because like, that has nothing to do with anything.
It is just fueled by your flat out hatred and anger over people who disagree with you. Like, you heard the ending of her clip where she was basically just using every single disgusting piece of language she could to describe people that she does not like. She has this image
of people
on the right.
According to Brett Cooper, just simply saying swear words is the most disgusting language. I'm sorry, Christians, y'all gotta do better. Y'all gotta do better. Y'all gotta be okay with just basic speech being a thing. Lenari says, because of course she's a language cop. Yes. She's being Captain America right now. Los Muertos, thank you for the 10 bits, says, I live in Cali and most of my extended family voted for Trump in 2016 and 2024. Our discussions usually ended with, hey, I don't hate Latinos, I just like his policies. But then we're okay with ICE raids and literal acts of authoritarianism. Make it make sense. It's because people don't think through their political beliefs. And then they listen to people like Brett Cooper that basically tell them that it's okay not to think through your political beliefs.
In her mind. And it's just grotesque. It genuinely is so grotesque. And also, she's like the perfect example of the modern left. Like, because the modern left now is the party of Gen X and boomers. Like, that's what she got. I'm sorry, like Gen Z progressives, but your fighting warriors, they are women like her. They are the Gen X wine moms. They are the boomers that are out in their taco costumes on the side of the road at the No Kings protests. Like, that's who's got your back. And that, unfortunately, is very embarrassing. And I think a lot of young people are looking around and they're seeing videos like this. They're probably seeing a lot of the Sydney Sweeney things and they're going, oh yeah, I do not want to be a part of this at all because this is so unhinged and it is so embarrassing.
So on the one hand, yes, it is. But on the other hand, again, her position is an internally consistent one. Once more, the problem with her position has nothing to do with its internal consistency. The problem with her position has everything to do with what a world would look like where we could actually enforce that. Jet says, yes, people at the No Kings protest had our backs, definitionally. Some of them, yes. Some people at the No Kings protest did, in fact, have the backs of people in mind. Superstorm says, I generally don't get the black male and Latino love for Trump in the last election. It's like seeing cows vote for McDonald's. Yeah, it is. I agree. But Uncle Ruckus says, there's never been a white superhero. Superman's white. Spider-Man's white. Miles Morales, that's not Spider-Man.
And that is why so many people are leaving the left and they are coming to the right. And I'm sure that it is tentative. I'm sure that a lot of it is a rejection from what they have been experiencing, but you've caused it. You have to take responsibility for it. You have to know when you have lost and why you have lost, just like we need to freaking learn how to win. So basically, everybody needs to get their crap together. Everybody needs to run their posts by me before you put them on X, because everybody is unhinged, and I think that I know everything. That's basically how I feel at 9 months pregnant. I'm like, everybody needs to just shut up. But also, I'm kind of enjoying it because it means I get great content for these last couple of weeks that I'll be doing the show. So anyway,
I didn't even know Brett Cooper was pregnant, because that's just not a thing that I Google in my spare time. But that is the end of her episode. I only wanted to cover the one bit because it's just fascinating to look into the mind of somebody who never thinks but always speaks. Jesus Christ. It's a sad, sad state of affairs. I do hope she's doing better now that she's not away from now that she's not part of the Daily Wire, but like, she's still doing the same old shit. So like, for us, there's really no difference. There's no difference at all between like how she is here and how she was on the Daily Wire. It's the same thing. Dorito Dave says, remember the Abby Shapiro pregnancy pic? I don't think I ever looked that up, but knowing you, Dorito, it's going to show up in my DMs in a minute. And then somebody in the chat is going to be gooning to pregnant Abby Shapiro, because I guess we get off on hatred in this house. Anyway, that's it for that one. That's Brett Cooper being a silly little bean, being a dumb, silly little bean. And honestly, I think we should make fun of her more for it. That's a take that makes no fucking sense at all. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Limor Pinku, Love Bunny Games, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Aurora, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it. Just a little bit.